The graves can be found in cemeteries from the East Coast to the West, from the Deep South to the far North, and all states in between. In these cemeteries are found the graves of Confederate soldiers and sailors, men who died in battle and those who survived the war for Southern independence to live far into the future, to beget generations of their own. Here the graves of unknown privates are found nearby the resting spots of battlefield officers, whose names will never be forgotten as long as a group of men exists known as the Sons of Confederate Veterans. Those who lie in these cemeteries came mostly from the farms, small towns, and villages of what was then the newly created Confederate States of America. They were the sons, fathers, husbands, and brothers of the South. During the war, to establish a new nation, 800,000 would come forward to defend against an invader. 260,000 would die as a result. These heroes of the South were our ancestors, our forefathers, our blood kin to whom we are forever linked. We, in the Sons of Confederate Veterans, stand in awe of their long-ago bravery and accomplishment, for we are the descendants of men who sacrificed all but their honor.
Hello, I'm Ron Castillo. It is my honor to speak for the Sons of Confederate Veterans and extend to you an invitation to join our organization. To be eligible for membership in the SCV requires that you have a blood relative who served honorably in the armed forces of the Confederacy and that you can document that ancestry. We have genealogists to assist if need be. Additionally, each applicant for membership must be at least 12 years of age. Be assured that there are numerous benefits to being in the SCV. Chief among them is the pride you will feel that comes from being a member of the oldest, most creditable, and best-known Confederate hereditary organization in existence.
The Sons of Confederate Veterans was formed in 1896. Back in a time when it was nothing unusual to see Confederate veterans in the streets of America's towns and cities, proudly remembering and celebrating their Confederate heritage. Until that time, the aging veterans of the war came together as members of the United Confederate Veterans. The Sons of Confederate Veterans was formed as a direct heir to the United Confederate Veterans. The first Commander-in-Chief of the Sons of Confederate Veterans was Jeb Stuart, Jr., the son of Confederate cavalry hero Major General Jeb Stuart. Today, Jeb Stuart IV carries on a rich SCV heritage.
The Sons of Confederate Veterans is an organization where we can help, as the Museum of the Confederacy is doing in its own way, help preserve that heritage which our ancestors fought for so incredibly hard. And it does, and belonging to the SCV means that I believe in the ideals of honoring our ancestors and honoring the brave deeds that they were involved in, and continuing that perpetuation of that memory even to today.
Today's SCV exists to preserve the history and legacy of its heroes, so future generations can understand the events and circumstances that motivated our ancestors to resist tyranny and fight for Southern independence, just as their ancestors did when they fought the British. The SCV is not affiliated with any other organization and rejects any group whose actions tarnish or distort the image of the Confederate soldier or his reason for fighting.
To be in the SCV means having the frequent opportunity to engage in a wide variety of programs and activities. Memorializing Confederate heroes and holidays is one of the most popular events in which camps and divisions are involved. Reenactments of one kind or another are popular within the SCV, although one does not have to be a reenactor to be in the SCV. Reenacting is something in which families can participate. The SCV is also deeply involved in education through various programs, including the Sam Davis Youth Camps, which are put on in different parts of the Confederation each year. Managed by the national organization, at these camps, young men are immersed in a week-long education of Confederate history and heritage, and come out a better off young man because of this unique camp experience. The placing of monuments honoring battles, heroes, and events is seen in divisions of all sizes. This monument, noting the Battle of Centralia in Missouri, was recently placed at the site where Quantrill, Anderson, and Todd wiped out a troop of mounted Yankee infantry. Outside Olahatchee, Alabama in Calhoun County is a 150-foot-long, three-wall monument featuring large sections of black granite. This remarkable monument was recently completed to honor Confederates from the area who fought in the war for Southern independence. The Janey Furnace Confederate Memorial is a truly unique site and tribute to the Confederate veterans of Calhoun County. She was known far and wide in the SCV as the last surviving Confederate widow. Until her death in 2004 at the age of 98, Mrs. Alberta Martin of Alabama was the center of attention wherever she went and was adored by her followers in the SCV. It was in Columbia, South Carolina in the year 2000 that some 12,000 members of the SCV and their supporters came from across the nation to show their support for keeping the Confederate battle flag flying atop the state capitol dome. It was one of the largest turnouts of the SCV in generations. 4 years later, in the city of Charleston, South Carolina, the throng that gathered there for the day's event was the largest Confederate heritage event of the modern era. Perhaps 100,000 or more persons, many in uniform and costumes, gathered for the funeral of the crew of the CSS Hunley, a Confederate submarine, the first to ever sink an enemy warship. In Florida, that state's SCV division became the first to raise one of the largest Confederate battle flags to ever fly. With great ceremony, the flag was raised some 100 feet in the air alongside a well-traveled interstate and still greets Yankees coming down for a vacation and bids them adieu as they leave. In 2005, a large crowd of Confederate heritage supporters gathered as the Alabama SCV raised a giant 32 by 20-foot flag atop a 110-foot pole alongside Interstate 65 just north of Montgomery. Like the Florida flag, this flag is viewed by hundreds of thousands of people each year who travel this main north-south route through Alabama. Each man who joins the Sons of Confederate Veterans does so for his own reason or reasons, but membership most frequently centers joining because of pride in their individual ancestors.
I joined the Sons of Confederate Veterans because my grandfather would sit at night at the barn firing up a furnace, curing tobacco, and would tell me stories about what his father told him about being in the war between the states.
I'm a member of the Sons of Confederate Veterans out of respect and admiration for my ancestors who fought to defend their homes and their state and their country.
What got me into the SCV was going to school and seeing the teachers teach out of the textbooks, which usually never told the whole truth. However, they would kind of skirt around it, and I just got tired of that because, and you also had your kids that would always badmouthing, the Confederate States and saying that they were all traitors, and I didn't want to hear that about my ancestors.
Being with a group as recognized and respected and historic in itself. We're marking 110 years now of the existence of the Sons of Confederate Veterans, and we certainly have been instilled with carrying their memory on.
The passion that the Confederate soldiers fought under is something that endeared them in my heart and is burnt there for the rest of my life.
Located at Elm Springs, a restored antebellum home in Columbia, Tennessee, is the international headquarters of the SCV. It is at Elm Springs that all membership applications are processed. Overseeing that procedure is SCV's Executive Director, Ben Sewell.
Well, the first thing is to identify an ancestor. That can be either a direct line, a grandfather, great-grandfather, or collateral could be the brother of a great-grandmother or a cousin, any blood relationship, who served in the Confederate Armed Forces. You identify that person by name, by rank, unit, and state. Then you go about providing a simple genealogy linking you to that ancestor, and you also obtain proof of honorable service. That can be in the form of either an approved pension for the Confederate veteran or his widow, or the war service record, which you can obtain from the state archives of the state where he served. If you don't already know who the ancestor is, then the first thing you'd want to do is put your genealogy together to start a family tree with your name, the name of your mother and father, the name of both sets of grandparents, also of all the sets of great-grandparents. And you can do that by going back probably to the oldest living person in your family and having that person help you put this together. Once you get it as far back as you can, if you have males born between 1835 and 1850, those are likely candidates to have been Confederate soldiers. If you cannot get it that far back, then you may want to contact our genealogy committee who can help you do some of this research. One of the things that you would want to do is determine where you wish to join. We have approximately 875 local camps located throughout the United States, primarily in the South, but often in other states as well. But find one near you. You would submit your application with the war service record and the simple genealogy to the local camp, where they would review it and approve your membership. They in turn would forward that information to the international headquarters in Columbia, Tennessee, where your membership would be processed and your membership certificate prepared.
I hope you are interested in protecting and perpetuating the ideals of the Confederate soldier. Quite frankly, the SCV needs you now more than ever before. The memory and reputation of the Confederate soldier, indeed all our Confederate heritage, is under attack. This memory, this reputation, the motives for the Confederate soldier's suffering and sacrifice are being purposely disregarded and distorted. Sadly, these attacks are likely to continue on well into the future until political correctness is a thing of the past. Please join the SCV if you are eligible, as we must strongly resist the efforts to harm our heritage, as that heritage may well be destroyed. Thank you for watching, and I wish you success in finding your Confederate ancestor. Deo Vindici, God will vindicate.
The year was was 1861 in the farmlands of the South. The family was small and poor and lived from hand to mouth. The father told his only boy, "Please, son, don't leave." The boy said, "Dad, I'm sorry, my country's calling me." And they fought for what they thought was right, and they thought that victory was in sight to the bitter end. They spilled their tears and their blood, fighting for the South in the cruel Virginia mud.